This man is a beggar. He isn't begging for money. He's begging for something far more expensive: respect. And here is the dramatic irony that most men die without ever realizing. The more you ask for respect, the more you prove you don't deserve it. You are holding out an empty bowl, waiting for others to drop a coin of acknowledgement into it. But in the world of power, nobody gives respect for free. It is a resource that is taken, never granted. By the end of this chapter, you will realize that the very virtues you were taught in childhood are the chains keeping you at the bottom of the food chain. If you leave now, you remain a doormat. If you stay, you learn how to burn the bowl and build a throne. We begin with the fundamental error: the plea. Think of the last time you were interrupted in a meeting or a social circle. Did you stop talking immediately? Did you wait for a gap to politely reclaim your turn? Or worse, did you say, "Excuse me, I wasn't finished"? The moment those words leave your lips, you have lost. You have just signaled to every brain in that room that your status is lower than the person who cut you off. You are asking for permission to exist. In the predator-prey dynamics of the human psyche, permission is for the weak. The fall of the kind shogun. Look at the Ashikaga shogunate of Japan, specifically the later years. These were rulers who tried to maintain peace through fairness and negotiation, and they begged their vassals for loyalty, offering land and titles as gifts to buy respect. The result: their subordinates saw the gifts not as rewards, but as evidence of the shogun's fear. The more the shoguns pleaded for stability, the more the warlords smelled blood. The shogunate didn't collapse because of a lack of resources. It collapsed because the head of the snake started acting like a tail. When you ask someone to please respect your boundaries, you are telling them exactly where your weaknesses are. You are handing them a map of your insecurities. True power doesn't announce a boundary. It enforces a consequence. Society loves a nice guy. Your mother, your teachers, and the HR department all want you to be agreeable. Why? Because agreeable people are easy to manage. They are predictable. They are safe. But let's strip away the ego. Most niceness isn't a moral choice. It's a survival strategy for the person too afraid to be dangerous. If you are nice because you can't be mean, you aren't virtuous. You are just harmless. A rabbit isn't moral for not eating a wolf. It simply lacks the teeth to do so. You think you are being the bigger person by letting a slight slide. But the audience, the world, sees a man who is terrified of conflict. You are wearing a mask of patience to hide a face of paralysis. Consider the chivalry trap. Modern men are taught to be self-sacrificing to a fault. But look at the dark psychology of attraction and professional dominance. People are not drawn to those who sacrifice themselves. They are drawn to those who are worth sacrificing for. When you put everyone else's needs above your own, you aren't being a hero. You are telling the world that your time, your energy, thoughts, and your life have a value of 0. Your mouth might be saying, "I am a leader," but your nervous system is screaming, "I am a target." Human beings are still great apes. Our brains are hardwired to scan for high status and low status markers in milliseconds. This is the lizard brain reality. Why do you tilt your head when you listen? It exposes the jugular. It's a submissive signal. High-stress individuals blink faster. It signals that your brain is overwhelmed by the environment, in the space shrieking. Watch a man who doesn't respect himself. He keeps his elbows tucked in. He crosses his legs tight. He tries to take up as little physical space as possible, as if apologizing for the air he breathes. Contrast this with the predator's stillness. Think of a tiger. A tiger doesn't fidget. A tiger doesn't look around nervously to see if everyone likes its presence. It moves with a terrifying economy of motion. If you cannot control the twitch in your hand or the pitch of your voice when you are challenged, you can never control a room. In the next chapter, I will show you how to weaponize stillness. But first, you must understand how you were brainwashed into this shrunken state. From the age of 5, you were placed in a box. You were told to sit still, raise your hand to speak, and follow the rubric to get the gold star. This isn't education, it's domestication. The matrix, the corporate and social structures we live in, thrives on your desire for respect. It uses titles and promotions as carrots. It keeps you begging for the next level of validation, so you never realize that the person giving the validation is the one who actually holds the power. These were elite soldiers, taken as children and programmed to be the Sultan's ultimate tools. They were the best, the most respected warriors, but they were slaves, and their respect was tied entirely to their utility to the throne. The moment they began to think for themselves, they were purged. You are a modern janissary. You work 60 hours a week for a senior title because you think it will finally make people look at you differently. But respect tied to a job title is borrowed power. The moment the title is gone, you are a beggar again. The battle of good man versus the great man. The final rupture. This brings us to the ultimate divide. When the good man follows the rules, he is liked, he is reliable. He dies with a nice headstone and a group of people who say, he was a nice guy, before forgetting him 3 days later. The great man, in the Machiavellian sense, understands that good is a subjective term defined by the winners. He doesn't seek to be liked, and he seeks to be formidable. Most men are terrified of being formidable because they think it means being a villain. But here is the secret the elite won't tell you. The only people who can truly protect others are those who are capable of being monsters. You have spent your whole life trying to be good, and look where it got you. You are overlooked, overworked, and under-respected. You are smaller than you were 5 years ago. Are you ready to stop being good? We will move from the anatomy of the beggar to the tactics of the sovereign. I will show you why the most powerful thing you can do in a negotiation is nothing at all. But before we move on, ask yourself this. If you disappeared tomorrow, would the people in your life miss you, or would they just miss what you did for them? If the answer is the latter, you aren't a person in their eyes. You're a utility. Next, we learn the art of strategic silence. I'm going to show you how one man destroyed a political rival without saying a single word. If you think you need to speak up to be heard, you've already lost. We dissected the beggar, the man who leaks energy, space, and status, because he is terrified of the void. But now, we enter the territory of the sovereign. Imagine a room in mid-clatter. Everyone is shouting, posturing, and desperate to be heard. Then, a man enters. He doesn't speak. He doesn't announce his arrival. He simply stands there, perfectly still, looking at the chaos with a faint, unreadable expression. Within seconds, the room begins to quiet. Not because he asked for it, but because his silence has become a physical weight that the others cannot lift. This is the ruthless pivot. It is the moment you stop being a passenger in other people's narratives and start becoming the vacuum that pulls them in. If you think power is about having the loudest voice, you are still a child playing in a sandbox. True power is the ability to command the void. The greatest mistake the beggar makes is the explaining reflex. When challenged, he talks. When ignored, he talks more. He thinks that if he can just provide enough context, enough logic, or enough fairness, the world will finally see his value. The more words you use to justify your existence, the less your existence matters. Words are cheap. Silence is the ultimate luxury. Consider the great silence of Cardinal Richelieu. He was the architect of French dominance, a man surrounded by enemies, spies, and assassins. When a subordinate or a rival would bring him news, even catastrophic news, Richelieu would often say, "Nothing." He would simply stare at them. The psychological effect was devastating. The other person, desperate to break the tension, would start rambling. They would reveal secrets they hadn't intended to share. They would offer concessions they hadn't planned to give. They would literally negotiate against themselves because they couldn't handle the void Richelieu created. When you refuse to fill the silence, you force the other person to confront their own insecurities. You aren't just not talking, you are holding up a mirror to their desperation. From this moment on, your rule is this: never interrupt an opponent while they are hanging themselves with their own words. Why do we value diamonds? They aren't particularly useful. They are valuable because they are hard to find. The beggar is always available. He replies to texts in seconds. He says yes to every invitation because he's afraid he won't be invited back. He is a common resource, and common resources are treated with contempt. You think being reliable makes you indispensable. The truth? It makes you a utility. People don't respect the faucet that gives them water. They only notice it when it breaks. To pivot to ruthlessness, you must become a ghost. You must learn to withdraw your attention. When someone treats you with a lack of respect, do not argue. Withdraw. Remove the drug of your presence. Let them feel the coldness of your absence. If they don't value you when you're there, make them fear what happens when you're gone. We now move from your absence to your reaction, or rather, the lack of one. The beggar is emotionally reactive. If someone insults him, his face flushes. If someone praises him, he beams. He is like a puppet. Anyone with a sharp tongue can pull his strings and make him dance. The ruthless pivot requires you to become the stone. Think of Talleyrand, the French diplomat who survived the Revolution, Napoleon, and the restoration of the monarchy. It was said of him that you could kick him in the back while he was talking to you, and his face wouldn't show a single flicker of change. He was uninsultable. Why is this powerful? Because insults are an attempt to steal your status. When someone mocks you, they are testing to see if they can move your emotional needle. If you react, if you get angry, if you get defensive, you have admitted that they have the power to affect you. You have given them the remote control to your soul. When you remain ice cold, you invert the dynamic. You make the aggressor look like a screaming child. You become the adult in the room, and the audience, whether it's a boardroom or a bar, instinctively aligns with the person who cannot be moved. But being still isn't just about your face. It's about how you occupy the very fabric of reality around you. Most men are shrinking. We are going to learn how to expand. Now, we weaponize the nonverbal takeover. This is invisible encroachment. It is the art of taking space without asking for it. The ancient Spartans were famous for their laconic style, short, brutal speech. But their real power was in their eyes. They didn't look at people. They appraised them. When you walk into a room, Do not look for a place to fit in. Look for the place that is yours. When someone speaks to you from the side, do not turn your whole body immediately. Turn your head slowly. Make them wait for your full attention. This signals that your focus is a prize that must be earned. When sitting, let your limbs occupy the space. Not in a forced way, but with a relaxed, heavy entitlement. Walk through a crowd as if you are a ship and they are the water. Do not weave. Do not slip past people. Maintain your line. The beggar moves for everyone. The sovereign moves for no one. The polite man thinks he is being respectful by moving out of the way. In reality, he is practicing his own invisibility. He is training the world to walk over him. Finally, we master the mirror. When someone is being passive-aggressive or overtly disrespectful, the beggar tries to de-escalate by being even nicer. This is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It only encourages the bully. If someone speaks to you with a condescending tone, do not get angry. Simply mirror their tone back to them, but with a 10% increase in coldness. If they are short with you, be shorter with them. This isn't revenge, it's calibration. You are teaching them the price of entry for interacting with you. You are showing them that whatever energy they put out will be reflected back at them, intensified. You have now learned how to silence the room, how to become a ghost, how to turn into stone, and how to mirror the world's hostility. You are no longer the beggar with the empty bowl. You are starting to feel the weight of your own power. But there is a danger. Power without a foundation is just a performance. If you act like a king, but still feel like a slave inside, the world will eventually smell the fraud. You can't just act ruthless. You have to be ruthless with your own internal boundaries. Next, I am going to show you how to set hard borders that are so absolute, people will be terrified to even think about disrespecting you. And I will reveal the one internal anchor that makes you truly ungaslightable. Are you ready to stop playing the game and start owning the board? This is the final evolution. We have moved from the pathetic desperation of the beggar to the cold, tactical maneuvers of the pivot. Now, we enter the realm of the sovereign architect. This isn't about winning a conversation. It's about designing a reality where the conversation never even dares to challenge you. Imagine a man who sits at the head of a table. He doesn't check his phone. He doesn't look for approval when he speaks. He doesn't even demand respect. Instead, there is an invisible electric fence around his persona. People naturally speak softer around him. They choose their words with surgical precision because they intuitively feel that a single mistake, a single act of disrespect, will result in a permanent cold exile from his world. He is the sovereign architect. He has stopped playing the game because he has realized he is the board. If you've followed me this far, you've felt the shift. You've stopped leaking energy. But here is the dramatic irony of power. The moment you think you've arrived is the moment you become most vulnerable. Power is not a destination. It is a maintenance project. If you don't build the architecture to protect your new status, the beggar inside you will crawl back out the moment things get difficult. Most men have soft borders. They tell someone, "Don't talk to me like that." And when the person does it again, they say it again, but louder. This is a beggar's boundary. It is a suggestion, not a law. A sovereign architect uses hard borders. Historical evidence. The Iron Chancellor, Otto von Bismarck. Bismarck didn't negotiate with those who insulted the Prussian crown. He didn't send angry letters or demand apologies. He simply adjusted the reality of the map. If a diplomat crossed a line, that diplomat ceased to exist in the political sphere. Bismarck wouldn't argue. He would simply remove the person's access, influence, and future. He practiced the aura of no return. Once you crossed Bismarck, there was no sorry, no let's grab a drink, and no second chances. You must have a dead zone in your social circle. If someone mocks your goals, disrespects your time, or undermines your authority, you do not address it. You delete their access to you. No explanation, no drama, just a cold, silent withdrawal of your presence. When people realize that crossing you is a one-way trip to exile, they will treat your boundaries with the same reverence they give a high-voltage wire. The beggar is a victim of external validation. He needs the world to tell him he's doing a good job. He is like a ship with no anchor, tossed around by the waves of other people's opinions. The sovereign architect is his own high priest. He has an internal anchor. The world will try to gaslight you into submission, and they will call your confidence arrogance. They will call your boundaries toxic. They will try to make you feel guilty for being formidable. The very people who call you arrogant are the ones who are most desperate to be like you. Their criticism is actually a confession of their own weakness. To maintain power, you must reach a state of truth autonomy. This means that your definition of yourself is more real to you than anyone else's definition of you. If someone says, "You're being difficult," and you know you're being principled, their words should hit you like a paper airplane hitting a tank. You don't get defensive because there is nothing to defend. A tank doesn't apologize for being heavy. Machiavelli famously asked, "Is it better to be loved or feared?" He concluded that while both are ideal, fear is safer because it is under your control, whereas love is under the control of others. However, a sovereign architect knows that raw fear leads to mutiny. You want awe-based fear. We have reached the end of the transformation. You have dismantled the beggar. You have mastered the pivot. You have built the architecture. But there is one final cliffhanger you must face. The paradox of the crown. The higher you climb, the more the world will try to pull you down. Not through force, but through comfort. They will try to make you soft again. They will offer you the peace of being ordinary. And they will tell you that you've done enough. Most men reach this level and then fall back into the beggar state because they get addicted to their own success. They start begging for the world to keep loving them. True sovereignty is the ability to walk away from everything you've built, if it means keeping your soul. A sovereign architect isn't a slave to his throne. He is the man who can walk into a desert with nothing but his mind and build a new empire from the sand. You started this video/book looking for tricks to get respect from others. You finish it realizing that others no longer matter. The only person whose respect was ever worth having is the man looking back at you in the mirror. And that man doesn't beg.